Hey everyone, it's Mr. Hollywood, and today I will be giving you guys my picks for the top 10 MCU villains with the release of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, before I give you my ranking, feel free to share your ranking down below in the comments, and let's begin. Coming in at number 10 is Ronan the Accuser, a villain that, while he didn't have as much development as some of the other villains, the little time that we saw him, he was a great villain. And the fact that he worked with Thanos, who, spoiler alert, makes the list, it just makes his villain arc a little more compelling. And even though he didn't do much in Captain Marvel, the little that we saw him in the first Guardians was well done. Now, coming in at number 9 is Neymar, the sole reason of why I'm doing this video right now. And he's a character who I think could be part of the Thunderbolts lineup. And he has maybe the best villain arc. Okay, maybe not the best, but one of the best villain arcs in the MCU. And they show him as a villain who feels a little more betrayed and wants vengeance, and I just think they did a great job at developing it, and it was very satisfying to see him surrender at the end. And I do hope to see more of them in the future. Now, coming in at number 8 is Scarlet Witch. Now, this character has possibly the most tragic arc in the MCU. Like, she lost Vision, she lost her fake kids in WandaVision, and this movie kind of wants her to change that and try to turn things around, but she's driven by anger, and she does eventually learn the consequences of her actions, and at the end she sacrifices herself to save the multiverse. And I do think that was a very satisfying way to end her character arc. And it definitely feels like an homage to Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man 2. But anyway, I do think this villain was a great villain, and maybe she'll return one day, but if she doesn't, I think her arc closed out really well. Now, coming in at number 7 is Killmonger, a villain that was improved a bit by Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And this villain is one of the most popular villains, and he's definitely a fan favorite in the MCU. And I love this villain very much. And in the first Black Panther, while he did get defeated at the end, and we do need him to see defeated, he has a compelling enough arc that makes you cheer for him just a bit. And he did win the moral victory at the end of Black Panther, and he persuaded them to change Wakanda a bit. And I just do think his arc was really well, how he was like very bitter after his dad died, and he then was driven, like he wants to get revenge, and then eventually he has to be defeated, but I just think they executed it really well. Now, coming in at number 6 is Gore the God Butcher, a villain that I thought was going to be a good villain, but I did not think he would be a top-tier villain, but boy was I proven wrong. This villain was a great villain the second we saw him at the beginning of Thor: Love and Thunder. And unlike most people, actually really enjoyed Thor: Love and Thunder, and he was possibly the best part, where he loses his daughter at the beginning, and then he is mad at the gods, and this kind of turns him into an angry person. And then his sacrifice at the end, when his daughter was brought back, was very bittersweet. And yeah, I just think he was an amazing villain. They written him well, and Christian Bale killed it in the role, and it was nice to see Batman as Gore the God Butcher. But anyways, I really like this villain. Now, before I give you guys my top 5, I will be doing my other rankings for the MCU. I will be doing the MCU special presentations ranked. I'll be doing the MCU shows ranked. And I will find a time to do all the MCU movies ranked. Now, let's get back into the top 5. Now, coming in at number 5 is Wenwu, aka the real Mandarin. Now, I wanted to see the real Mandarin ever since Iron Man 3, where they use the fake Mandarin. And this film did a really great job at exploring the 10 rings and him being the leader all this time. And, he's driven hate by love. And, he lost his wife and he wants to change it, but, he just can't. And he learns the consequences of his actions where he has to get defeated at the end. And, there was just something very compelling about this arc, and I just think he was written really well. I'm very, Shang-Chi is one of my favorite MCU movies, and I'm very excited to see Shang-Chi in the future. And Wenwu is one of the best MCU villains. Now, coming in at number 4 is Loki, someone who is both a hero and a villain. However, when he's a villain, he's a great villain, and you never really trust him. You never know what he's gonna do, and he's had many problems, in his life throughout the MCU, where he loses his parents, and the Avengers, where he basically caused an army in New York, and you feel for him sometimes. And in the Loki TV show, even though he was technically not the villain in the show, he just was a really compelling character in that show. And the Loki show is one of my favorite MCU shows. And yeah, just Loki has probably had the longest time of all the villains in the MCU, and he was a great villain ever since we saw him in the first Thor. Now, coming in at number 3 is Green Goblin, a character that we obviously saw 20 years ago in the first Spider-Man, and he was a good villain in that. But then in Spider-Man No Way Home, when we seen all the villains, he turned into be a great villain, and he caused Peter Parker to want to fight, or he pretty much became a villain when he killed Aunt May, and that was really powerful. And then Peter obviously learns with great power comes great responsibility. And then when you see all 3 Spider-Mans, they all were driven by a loved one dying, and Green Goblin caused it. And Green Goblin they really did something special with this character in the new Spider-Man movie. And this character was just more than I ever expected they would do. And even though I like Dr. Octopus more as an overall villain, in the MCU, Dr. Octopus isn't much of a villain, so Green Goblin would be the number 3 on this list. Now, coming in at number 2 is Mysterio. Now, I know some people aren't the biggest fans of this villain, but I personally was. And this ties into Spider-Man No Way Home, because he revealed Peter's identity, and that was probably the best post-credit scene in any comic book movie. And Mysterio just had, of all the people that were scoring for Tony Stark, they did the best job with this villain, and his illusions are so cool, and he just has a really compelling arc throughout the film of being a fake superhero. And then he obviously turns out to be a villain, and when you see that post-credit in Spider-Man Far From Home, that was so mind-blowing, and it makes me really like this villain even more after what happened in No Way Home. Now, coming in number 1 is Thanos. Now, this one seems pretty obvious. I've said many times in my channel how much I love Thanos, and when you first saw him in the first Avengers, you know that he was up to no good, and when you saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy, you also know that he was up to no good. And then when you see him at the end of Age of Ultron, you know it's go time. And Thanos absolutely was a great villain. You actually kind of feel for him because, he's very bitter, and it cost him stuff. However, he just wants to blow up half the world, and he's the hero of his own story. And I just think that's really compelling. And, I have nothing wrong with Thanos. I just think he was a perfect villain. And, he just has... he basically just carries the Infinity Saga in Infinity War and Endgame. And I think the only villain that can ever possibly top him is Kang. But anyways, Thanos comes in at number 1. Now, thanks for watching. Feel free to share your ranking down below in the comments. And I will be uploading more in the next few days. Now, thanks for watching, and peace out.